Hey crew, it's Miss Jamison again, and today I came outside for our book video so that I could show you that beech tree again, that one that I showed you last time. Well, today we're going to read another book about trees, and I think you will really enjoy it. This week we have started to learn about how animals depend on trees. But let's think about that word depend for a minute. Here it is. Depend. What does depend mean? It means to rely on something or need something. So, for example, Sophie and Vito, my dogs, they depend on me to give them food and take them out on walks because they can't do that by themselves. They depend on me for that. But what about animals? What do animals depend on trees for? Well, we are going to find out today when we read this book, The Tree in the Ancient Forest by Carol Reed Jones with illustrations by Christopher Canyon. So, in this book, there's a very ancient tree in a very ancient forest, which means super, super old. Even older than that 100-year beech tree. You'll see. And in this book, there are a lot of different animals, but we're going to just focus on 3 of them. They are mice, owls, and woodpeckers. Mice, owls, and woodpeckers. Show me a brain match if you've ever heard of any of those animals. And if not, no big deal, because they'll be in the book. So, every time I get to one of those animals, we'll stop, and we will draw it on our tree diagram that I made to show where that animal depends on the tree and what it needs, what it depends on it for. And then at the end, you'll get to pick your favorite one of all 3 to go write and draw about. You will notice me doing some different motions in the book because it repeats itself. It's a pattern book. So as you learn the motions, you can do them with me. And the only times we'll stop will be for those 3 animals, mice, owls, and woodpeckers, okay? So I think you'll really enjoy this book. And now I'm going to read it. The Tree in the Ancient Forest. This is the ancient forest. This is the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. You can see the trunk and branches and leaves. These are the roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Nourish means feed. The roots feed the tree with food. These are the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Think of these like little mushrooms that grow on the roots. These are the voles and mice that tunnel, they dig, and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. So, here's the mice. That was our first animal, if you remembered that, great job. Eating the truffles on the roots. So mice depend on the tree for their food, their truffles. So I'm going to draw a few on the roots and then draw a couple mice. You'll get the idea. They won't be perfect, but you'll see. Okay, there's my little mice eating the truffles, and I'll write the word mice. The mice depend on the tree for their food, the truffles. Okay, let's keep going. This, is the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. What do the owls eat? The mice. Sorry, mouse. That's life. We're not done with owls yet. That's why I'm not stopping yet. There's more. These are the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel, and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Oh. So the owl brings food to the owlets, which live in the tree. Look at them. There they go. This is a hollow in the tree, like a hole, home of the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel, and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil that to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Okay, that's it for owls. So, there's the grown-up owls that fly, and then there's the little babies. So I'll draw the little babies inside the hole. Okay, and then I'll draw the flying one. Sometimes you can draw a bird like this quickly. I didn't want to take too much of your time. So you can see the owls eat the mice, which get their food from the tree. So the owls also depend on the tree for food and for a home because they live in that hole. So they get a different food from the tree, but it's still food. So far, mice depend on the tree for food, and owls depend on the tree for food. What's next? Woodpecker. This is the woodpecker searching for ants. Ants. That started the hollow in the tree, home of the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel, and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Look at that big beak, making a big hole in there to get ants out of the bark. Little ants, little ants. So, for a woodpecker, what does it do with the ants? It eats them. So, again, now that's our third animal that depends on the tree for food. Yeah. So I'm going to draw a little woodpecker. This isn't going to be my best work again, so don't be looking for my best work. But I'm going to draw a nice long beak, little eye. Ooh, all right. There we go. That's quite a woodpecker. Okay. Well, there's my woodpecker. Kinda. Good enough, right? Woodpecker depends on the tree for food also. Woodpeckers eat the ants from the bark, owls eat the mice, and the mice eat the truffles. So there's our three animals. Press your save button and remember that until the end of the book, because now I'm just going to keep reading and then we'll check in on our animals again at the end. This is the saucy, chattering squirrel that scolds the woodpecker searching for ants that started the hollow in the tree, home of the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel, and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. A little cute squirrel. This is the hungry, stealthy marten. That's a marten. that stalks the saucy, chattering squirrel, that scolds the woodpecker searching for ants, that started the hollow in the tree, home of the sleepy owlets, that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on the roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Wow. It's kind of a cool animal. I've never seen one. Oh, okay, this page is kind of silly. Just warning you. Bonk. These are the fir cones, like pine cones, that fall from a branch, bonk, and startle the hungry, stealthy martin that stalks the saucy, chattering squirrel that scolds the woodpecker searching for ants that started the hollow in the tree, home of the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil, that nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Oh, I'm going to have to take a big deep breath for this last page. Here we go. This is the 300-year-old tree that grows the fir cones that fall from a branch and startle the hungry, stealthy martin that stalks the saucy, chattering squirrel that scolds the woodpecker searching for ants that started the hollow in the tree, home of the sleepy owlets that are fed by the owl that flies at night, that hunts the voles and mice that tunnel and eat the tiny underground truffles that grow on roots that draw food from the soil to nourish the 300-year-old tree that grows in the ancient forest. Whoo! And that's the end of the story. Woo! That was a good one. I love that one, and I hope you do too. It has a fun kind of rhythm to it that I get to do the pattern with, and I like doing all the motions. If you didn't catch all the motions, no big deal. You can always go back and watch again. But now, let's think back about those three animals we had. We had the mice, the owls, and the woodpeckers. So, our mice, let's think first. How do our mice depend on the tree? Do you remember? What do they get from the tree? Yeah, they get food. They get their food from the roots. They eat the truffles off the roots. What about the owls? What do they depend on the tree for? Food again, and some shelter, but mostly food where they are eating those mice. Okay, food. And then what about this last one? Woodpeckers? My silly looking woodpecker. What does he depend on? The tree, yeah. Not my best question. How does it depend on the tree? That's what I meant. It eats the ants out of the bark, so it gets its food from the tree also. Mice depend on the tree for food. Owls depend on the tree for food. Woodpeckers depend on the tree for food. But do they all eat the same food? They eat different food. So when you go and write and draw about your favorite of these three animals, I can't wait to see how you write and draw about how one of these animals depends on that ancient tree for food. Whew, that was a lot. But I think it was a great book, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. I miss you guys tons. I love you, and I really hope that you enjoyed learning about how animals depend on trees today. So, I'll say bye for now, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to send pictures of your work to me or Miss Vonleh or Miss Redmond, whoever your teacher is. All right, my friends, see you next time.